Spanish Obsessed Spanish from Scratch, number 9. Hola Liz.
Hola Rob,
¿Qué más? ¿Qué tal?
súper bien.
Me alegro mucho. I'm very happy.
Me too.
Great. So, we're going to move on today to focus on 2 verbs, coming and going. So, how do you say to go? How do you say to come?
Ir, venir.
Ir and venir. So, ir is actually quite a strange verb. It's an IR ending, but then that's all it seems to be anyway. If you remember, we find the root of a verb by removing its ending. So in the case of id, we actually end up with nothing, because the way it's spelt is IR'd. Id. You remove the root and you have nothing. So first, we'll look at how to conjugate this verb, and then we'll look at some of its uses. If you haven't guessed it by now, unfortunately a lot of the most frequent verbs in Spanish are also the most irregular. And id is no exception to this rule. It's completely irregular, so sorry about that. Liz, your fault.
Yeah.
Your language. Okay, so the usual drill. Liz will run through the conjugations for this verb in the present simple tense. So we would like you to listen and repeat.
Yo voy. Tú vas. Él, ella, usted va. Nosotros vamos. Vosotros vais. Ustedes, ellos, van.
Okay, so we've done a lot of these conjugations, and I think now is actually a good point that we can just have a look at how we learn these and think if there's a better way of doing it. So I don't know, Liz, if when you studied, did you study English at school?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. Well, I don't know, when you learn English, you probably don't have to do conjugations, do you? Because it's pretty easy.
No, not really. We just studied verb to be and
Well,
we
that's a bit more
conjugate.
difficult. I am, he is,
Yeah,
they were.
exactly. But it's just we memorized that and that's it.
Sure. Obviously, with Spanish, it's a bit more complex, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
you've got lots of different conjugations, and this is only the present simple as well. There's different conjugations for different tenses.
Yeah, each verb sounds different.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's a bit boring just to try and memorize them parrot fashion. So, I used to do quite a useful exercise, which I'm going to describe now. So, imagine you've got 2 piles of flashcards. In one pile, you've got all the pronouns.
Yes.
So, yo, tú, él, ella, usted, etc. And in the other pile, you've got all of the verbs which you're trying to memorize. So, I don't know, ir, correr, venir, hablar, etc. And on the reverse of those cards, you've also got the translations in English. So you start by shuffling each deck of cards, and then you pull one card from one pile, the pronoun pile, and then another card from the other pile, which is the verb pile. And then you conjugate the verb from the verb pile according to the pronoun. So, for example, you pull tú, and the verb is
Comer.
comer. So you say tú comer, okay, tú comes. And you can practice conjugations in this way.
But
Go-
how you can how you can confirm that you're right or not? It's just like how it
Yeah.
sounds.
I mean, there's an element of you have to know them first, but it's really about practicing them, because what we're trying to do is make them second nature, so that you don't have to think about it. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So you can do that. That's quite useful. And then when that gets too easy, you turn them over, and then you've got the English translations. So you might pull a card which says you, and then to talk, which is
Tú hablas.
exactly. So you get the idea. This is something you might want to try.
Yeah, sounds very interesting.
Okay, so back to id. How do we use it? Listen to the following dialogue about making plans, and try to understand what Liz and I are talking about.
Rob, ¿quieres hacer algo esta noche?
¿Vamos al cine?
No, no me gusta esta idea.
Entonces, ¿qué tal si vamos a la casa de mi hermano?
No, tampoco me gusta.
¿Qué quieres hacer?
Quiero ir al teatro.
Bueno, ¿qué tal si tú vas al teatro
Mm.
y yo voy a la casa de mi hermano?
Ash.
Sounds like a conversation we often
Yeah,
have.
normal one.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll repeat it, and this time we'll translate and look at some of those sentences as well.
Rob, ¿quieres hacer algo esta noche?
So, ¿quieres hacer algo? Do you want to do something? Algo is something. Esta noche, hopefully you remember, means tonight. So, Rob, do you want to do something tonight? I said, vamos al cine. So, vamos is from nosotros. So, we go to the cinema. And as you'll see a bit later, this actually translates best as, shall we go to the cinema?
No, no me gusta esta idea.
Okay, so esta idea is this idea. Hopefully you remember no me gusta, so I don't like this idea. So no, I don't like this idea. And then I said, entonces, ¿qué tal si vamos a la casa de mi hermano? So entonces means right then or well then. ¿Qué tal si? This is a really useful construction. ¿Qué tal si? How about if? How about if? ¿Qué tal si vamos a la casa de mi hermano? How about if we go to my brother's house? La casa de mi hermano.
No, tampoco me gusta.
So, tampoco means neither in the sense of me neither. So, Liz said, no, tampoco me gusta, meaning, no, I don't like this either. So then I said, ¿qué quieres hacer? ¿Qué quieres hacer? What do you want to do?
Quiero ir al teatro.
So, el teatro is the theatre. Quiero, I want. Ir, to go. Quiero ir al teatro. I want to go to the theatre. And then I said, ¿qué tal si tú vas al teatro? So it's that construction again. ¿Qué tal si? How about if you go to the theatre, tú vas al teatro, y yo voy a la casa de mi hermano. And I go, y yo voy a la casa de mi hermano, to my brother's house. And then Liz said,
Ay,
ay, ay, ay, ay. Okay, so here we were using the construction ir plus a, which means to go to somewhere. So I said, vamos al cine. So al is a plus el, al. Vamos al cine, which literally translates as we go to the cinema. And this is where we see a difference in use between English and Spanish. If I say we go to the cinema in English, I'm talking about something that we might do regularly. For example, every Sunday we go to the cinema. However, I don't say tonight we go to the cinema. I'd probably instead say something like tonight we're going to the cinema, or tonight we'll go to the cinema. Or if you want to suggest a future plan, you might say let's go to the cinema. There's lots of ways to talk about future plans in English, but generally we don't use the present simple we go to the cinema tonight. Kind of sounds a bit like Tarzan. We go cinema. Spanish speakers, on the other hand, in Spanish, frequently use the present simple to indicate future plans, and that's what we did in the dialogue. So the first thing I said was vamos al cine, which is suggesting a future plan. So the equivalent in English is let's go to the cinema. Liz also said vamos a la casa de tu hermano. So can you guess what the English equivalent would be?
Let's go to brother's house.
Let's go to your brother's house. Yeah.
Let's go to your brother's house.
And here's a nifty little memory hook for you as well. You probably recognize the word vamos. Did you know it's actually the origin of when in English we say vamos, which you hear sometimes in kind of Western films. So vamos, like let's get out of here, vamos.
Vamos.
So that might help you to remember. So now we'll look at the opposite of to go, ir, which is of course to come.
Venir.
So are you going or are you coming? Are you coming or are you going? In fact, the comings and goings, Spanish even has that exact same phrase. How do you say the comings and goings?
Ir y venir.
El ir y venir. The comings and goings. So hopefully with venir, you'll remember how to conjugate it from episode 6, which is when we looked at the go verbs. If you can't remember, well, go and have a listen to that again. And we're also going to do a little reminder now. So let's look at the conjugation of venir in the present simple. So over to you, Liz. Usual drill, please.
Yo vengo. Tú vienes. Él, ella, usted viene. Nosotros venimos. Vosotros venís. Ustedes o ellos vienen.
So this is another irregular verb. Well, it's actually irregular, but in a regular way. So its irregularities conform to set patterns, so they're kind of expected. So venir is not only a go verb, so vengo, it's also a stem changing verb. That means that in this case, we add an additional I sound to certain pronouns. We add it to the tú, to the él, ella, or usted, and also the ustedes and ellos forms. So we get tú vienes, él viene, and ellos vienen, instead of benes, bene, or benen, which you'd get by following the normal rules for conjugation. So it's something to bear in mind. And there are a few other verbs like that as well. Don't get too hung up on it for now. We'll just focus on the communication. All of the conjugation and fiddly bits like that will sort themselves out eventually. Just take my word for it. It's a bit annoying, but there you go. So how do we use venir? It's quite similar to our English verb come, but there are a couple of intriguing differences. I'll give you one example. Imagine the doorbell rings. Ding dong. If one of us goes to get it, what do we say in English?
I'm coming.
Coming. However, in Spanish, the doorbell goes ding dong.
I'm going. Voy.
Boy, I'm going. So
Yeah.
I remember hearing that for the first time and I thought, oh, you're leaving? Or it's a bit strange. So that's one thing. And another nifty use of venir is when we say, I'll be right back. So I'm coming back in a minute. I'll be right back. In Spanish, they use ahora plus venir or ya plus venir. So, for example, ahora vengo or ya vengo or something like that means I'll be right back. So if you're heading out the door, you might say
Ahora vengo.
Or if there's more than one of you, you might say
Ya venimos.
Ya venimos, we'll be right back. Okay, and the most common usage of venir is with a. So venir a or vengo a. What does this mean? Well, literally it means come to, venir a. Or come in order to do something. So, for example,
Vengo a buscarte.
means I've come to look for you. So buscar is to look for. Buscarte, look for you. Vengo a buscarte. I've come or I'm coming to look for you. So, there you have venir and ir, just a taster of these two very important verbs. Finally, we're going to set you a small translation exercise to see that you've understood everything in the podcast so far. I'll give the English version, we'll pause, try and translate, and then Liz will give you, in her beautiful crystalline Spanish, the translated version. Okay, number 1. Let's go to the park.
Vamos al parque.
Number 2. I'm going to my sister's house.
Voy a la casa de mi hermana.
Number 3. Does he or she want to come?
¿Quiere venir?
And number 4. Do they want to go?
¿Quieren ir?
Okay, and that's it for id and venir for now. Don't forget you can get notes and transcription to this podcast at SpanishObsessed.com, and we'll see you next time. Adios.
See you soon. Bye.